Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. I'm God Empress Jessie Milestone, and this is meant to offend. So if you're offended, good. And today, I am speaking in defense, yes, in defense of James Gunn. If you haven't heard, James Gunn was just fired from Disney. He was fired as the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because it was discovered that like a decade ago, he wrote a whole bunch of tweets about rape and pedophilia, whatever, these tasteless jokes that people found offensive, so they fired him, because that's what we do these days. Now, why am I defending this guy? This guy who's obviously a pedophile and also thinks Star Wars fans who didn't like Disney Star Wars are toxic and is obviously just a horrible person all the way around. Clearly. Well, let's get to the bottom of this. And in order to do this, you have to boil down this controversy into its simplest terms. The simplest terms for what just happened is that James Gunn got fired for criticizing the president. That's what happened. Now, yes, there are a lot of other little pieces and bits and things that come into play here, and we will talk about all of those. We will cover all of those. But let's go to the beginning. Let's see where this started. Let's talk about what actually happened here, okay? So, you had, I have notes. You have Mark Duplass, right? Who came out and started saying some stuff about how people should follow Ben Shapiro. And this is someone on the left side of things saying more people should listen to Ben Shapiro as a way of getting, of reaching across the aisle and understanding both sides of things. Someone in advocacy of understanding both sides of the situation. Wow, what a novel concept. So, of course, he got a ton of hatred from the left for this. People were morally outraged. How could he support a monster like Ben Shapiro, who, by the way, like, that was such a great person to tag for let's understand the other side of things, because Ben Shapiro is a level-headed, thought-out intellectual who presents his arguments in that way. And so it's easy to listen to and digest and understand. Now, Mark Duplass is not advocating for agreeing with Ben Shapiro, even though I feel like any sane, rational person, doesn't matter what side of the spectrum they're on, is going to agree with certain things that he says. Maybe not all of it. I don't agree with all of it. But there are things he says where I'm like, yeah, 100% on board. On board, right? So he pointed to him by saying, look, this guy, he speaks like a sane, rational human. It's a good way to understand another side of thinking. But nobody wants to understand another way of thinking. They just want to be comfortable and happy in their own way of thinking and assume that anyone who thinks different from them is the devil. So Mark Duplass is under crazy amounts of fire from this. And James Gunn just came out, more voice of reason, but James Gunn has this diarrhea of the mouth disease where he can't just say the thing he wants to say. He's got to say everything else he thinks at the exact same time. So he starts out on a really good track. He starts out really, really well by basically saying, look, you guys are idiots for going after Mark Duplass for what he said. What he said is totally fine. He says you don't have to like Ben Shapiro or agree with him, but it doesn't make Mark an evil, bad person for the things that he said, right? Seems reasonable. Seems like a rational train of thought. Now, he also spewed a bunch of hatred for Ben Shapiro in the meantime, which, honestly, in some ways, makes what he did and said more admirable, because this guy made no joke, or made no secret about the fact that he despises Ben Shapiro, which is fine. He's allowed to. He doesn't have to like him. That's totally fine. And yet, he is still defending people who say, yeah, like Ben Shapiro. He's coming out and saying, I don't like this guy. I despise him. But if other people do, that's okay. They're not bad people for doing it. Which is funny, because then he went on this crazy diatribe about the president. So he seems to be lacking that perspective there too, which would be like, this is the wrong time to do that. You can hate the president and want to criticize him so you're blue in the face. That's okay with me. I don't care. But maybe, like, especially when it's wrapped up with the idea that's such a huge problem, is people on the left vilifying anyone who voted for Donald Trump. I was guilty of that in the beginning, I'll admit it. But I tried to turn back into a rational human being and understand that just because somebody supports somebody that I believe is pure evil and a psychopath, doesn't mean that they themselves are pure evil. I am learning how to understand why people voted for him and why they continue to support him. I'm learning to understand that there are valid reasons for people doing that, even if I don't agree with them. So maybe not the best venue, considering you just basically expressed that point of view to then go attack the person who is sort of the poster child for this particular issue. But he did that, which again, though, honestly, weird vehicle to do it in, but fine. Criticize the president. Who cares? That's a thing we're allowed to do in a free country. That's where absolutely, if you don't like that, if you're one of the people who's like, nope, you can't criticize the president ever at all, Move to North Korea. That is a place where it is acceptable to be thrown in jail and have your life ruined for criticizing the president. Otherwise, criticize away. And if you're one of those people who got all up in arms like, oh my God, stop criticizing President Trump. Rah! Did you ever criticize Obama? Yeah, you did? Great. Shut up. Right? Part of what our presidents, they're not gods. They're humans. They're fallible. They're not above reproach. Criticizing them is one of the ways we hold them accountable. Now, I liked Obama a heck of a lot more than I liked Trump, but I criticized him too. These people aren't perfect. Just because they're my president and I have to accept that they're my president doesn't mean I have to like and accept everything they do. That's just ridiculous. Only dictatorships work like that. We are not a dictatorship. So it's okay to criticize the president. Someone got real butthurt about that, went and took the time to dig years back into James Gunn's Twitter feed and find these off-color jokes that he made back in the day. All right, so basically that's your controversy. Your controversy is someone got butthurt that James Gunn criticized the president, dug up dirt, and got him fired, ruined his career, lost a huge job. I mean, you can say, oh, he'll bounce back, he'll be fine, whatever. He's losing out. He lost Guardians of the Galaxy. Gone, taken away. That, I mean, you can only imagine. He wrote the first two of those. You can only imagine how precious these movies are to him. Gone. Ripped away from him. So, yeah, oh, he'll be fine. He'll land on his feet. No, don't act like he's not hurting and he's not losing something major from this. He is, right? You hit him where it hurts. Congratulations, all right? And you did so in such, oh, God, honestly, props to the jerk-off who did this. Props to the conservative douche-off who, and this is, it's not even fair for me to say conservative, because there are a lot of great, fine conservative people, right? This person, obviously the wrong side, like the wrong kind of person, the person that probably most decent conservatives don't want to associate with anyway, right? Most decent conservative people can look at someone and say, I don't like that you're criticizing the president, I don't agree with what you're saying, but fine, shut up, I'll just leave you alone. I'm not gonna like go try to ruin your career for it. So yeah, I shouldn't be using that word, to just assume that that's all this guy is, because it's not, right? Maybe he is conservative, but the reality is he's a crappy person. Went and dug all this up, exposed these tweets, and now fired. All right, so let's look at the tweets. Let's take a look at the tweets themselves, right? Whole bunch of tweets making these off-color jokes about all different kinds of peoples, lots of pedophile jokes in there, and I'm gonna be honest, some of them are kind of funny. Some of them are funny. Some of them are tasteless. Some of them don't really land for me. Like, I get what you're trying to do there, but you're really just going for the shock value and the joke didn't really land. Some of them are funny. They're well crafted. They're good jokes. I mean, look, I'm gonna be straight with you guys. Every now and then, like I wish I had the ability to just snap and just like snap on a penis. You know, just penis when I needed one for the important things, like peeing outside and rape. Guys, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Peeing outside is gross. See what I did there? Now, you may not think that joke is funny. You may think that is a tasteless, unfunny joke, and you are allowed to. So what? Oh, are you going to go destroy my career now? Are you going to go try to ruin my life, destroy my career because I just said that out loud? Well, if you do, joke's on you. I don't have a career, so go have at it. Have fun. But that's it, right? That's the level, and granted, he did it a whole bunch of times, all right? That's the level that we're talking with these tweets. Okay, he did off-color offensive things like that. Did you find that joke funny? Maybe you did, because it's a well-crafted joke. You don't have to like it, but that actually, if you look at the structure of the joke that I made, right, it is a well-crafted, by the way that you write a comedy joke, that is a well-crafted joke. You don't have to like it. You don't have to think it's funny. You can think it's tasteless and horrible, right? But the whole point is, it is a joke. I'm making a joke. Maybe it lands. If it does, great, go me. A+. If it doesn't, sucks. Room doesn't laugh. I've lost I've lost part of the room. Gotta move on and keep trucking. That's just the life. That's you throw it out and see what sticks. That's all he was doing. All right, and now, okay, apparently there was like 10,000 different tweets advocating for pedophilia. We're talking about pedophilia. Now, I'm gonna hold off on just being like, yes, obviously that's a thing, that's real, right? Because this story has already been steeped in hyperbole from both sides, mind you. Like, this is, you know, not just the left but the right. Everyone's writing some varying, you know, degrees of hyperbole in this situation. For example, one of the articles stated that, oh, he personally witnessed a child being raped by a monkey, which is just BS. I mean, someone told him a story of something that happened on set where a monkey jacked off onto a kid, which, like, dude, the idea of that is funny. The reality of it is horrifying for the kid. I mean, but honestly, if I was there, I would have been laughing. And so he made a statement about that, how, like, it made him extremely happy, which was a really weird way to phrase it. I agree, right? But he wasn't there. He didn't witness this. Also, like, think about that. If you actually were a bystander in that situation, yeah, it's mildly horrifying, but it's also kind of hysterical. So that already has been taken out of context and blown out of proportion. You already have people saying, oh, well, he's all these where he advocates for anti-Semitism, advocates for racism. Like, no, he didn't. He made off-color jokes. You might find them tasteless, but just because you make an off-color joke, it does not make you a racist, an anti-Semite, or whatever. In fact, the Jew joke he made in his tweet made me chuckle. And it was, again, a good joke. It was based in truth. It was a funny joke. And it was just only has this tinged in those things that make you go like, ah. Honestly, also, another one that he had something about taking a poll. 9/11 jokes sometimes can be funny or always tasteless. Follow-up question, more or less offensive than Holocaust jokes. Which, like, as a comic, is a thing I've thought of. I have done Holocaust jokes. I'm Jewish. I get to do those. I have dabbled. I tried a 9/11 joke once. It worked some of the time, and it didn't other times. And it's what it is. That's what it is. You know, comedians. As you can tell, I'm approaching this very much as a comic, which will explain to those of you who are like, you're supposed to hate James Gunn because he said mean things about Star Wars fans. No, I don't have to hate everyone who said mean things about Star Wars fans. I'm approaching this one very much from a comic perspective, but let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about the stuff James Gunn said about the Star Wars fans, about how people, if this new Star Wars movie ruined your childhood or blah, 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 you should get therapy. Yeah, that's kind of a messed up thing to say. In the context, if you look at the context, he was specifically discussing, because he talked about something about how, and it was with the Kelly Marie Tran controversy, and to his credit, and again, these are things, Star Wars, the people on my side have been talking about this, like, oh, everyone's getting up in arms about Kelly Marie Tran, but no one talks about what happened to the actors, like Jake Lloyd, or then Ahmed Best, who was Jar Jar Binks, who apparently contemplated suicide after suffering harassment over the Phantom Menace, after the Phantom Menace. And now, so that's another one right there, right? He is saying the thing that we want to hear. That's the thing we do want to hear, which is, this isn't the first time it's happened, right? It was just as bad when it happened to the other people before. So that's cool. Yay, A+. Does he take it too far by generalizing all people who didn't like the Last Jedi as people who are harassing actors? Yeah, absolutely. He's kind of lumping us all into that vein, which is not cool. The spirit of what he's saying is fine. The spirit of what he's saying is don't harass actors because you didn't like the characters. That's the spirit. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Again, given to hyperbole and taking things too far and just saying, you know, more than needs to be said. So yeah, I think that was messed up. That's not the most messed up thing that's been said to or about Star Wars fans, and I don't like that he said that, right? But that doesn't mean that he's an awful person. Now, as a result of that, great, you go find these tweets and you use them as ammunition to attack him and say, I think you're the one who needs therapy if this is the kind of stuff you think is funny and acceptable. I'm down with that. I'm down with this back and forth battle narrative. Oh, you want to fire shots at me? I will fire them right back. That's fine. That's an even argument. That's no problem. But it's not, oh, you say something that offends me and I ruin your career. That's messed up. That's taking it way too far. All right, so let's go back. So we talked about the tweets a little bit, and let's talk about the guy in the context and his response to all this right now. Now, he came out and he talked about how at that time in his life, he thought of himself as a provocateur, as someone who said things just for shock value. Pretty obvious from the nature of the tweets, right? Pretty obvious. And also, all you people out there are being like, they're obviously not jokes. You're an idiot. There obviously are jokes. They're written like jokes. They're jokes. I mean, whether that speaks to something, so again, okay, if there's 10,000 of them, does that speak to something deeper in his psyche? Maybe it does. Does it warrant an investigation? Perhaps. Right? But an investigation, not an immediate knee-jerk, oh my god, you're fired because obviously you're a pedophile. No. No. And by the way, guys, pedophiles are only accountable for their actions if there are actions. If they're downloading and supporting child pornography, if they're actually touching children, right? But guess what? There are people in this world who have bad, messed up thoughts, and if they don't act on them, right, they're being good people. That's not their fault if their brains are wired wonky and they want to do weird-ass things, but if they can acknowledge and recognize that those things are bad and they don't do those things, that's all you can ask. That is all you can ask of those people. I'm not saying James Gunn is one of them. He may not be. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but all I'm saying is, unless you have some concrete evidence that he touched a child inappropriately, he's not a pedophile. Okay, so he himself talking about putting things out for shot. Now, obviously, I can relate as someone who has a video series on my channel that you're watching right now called Meant to Offend. Obviously, I can relate to the desire to do and say things, or to say things for shock value. I try not to do things just for shock value. It just happens that some of the things I do and think are shocking, and I just speak my mind, and that's the way it is. So I can understand that desire. I also appreciate the fact that he didn't come out and was like, I'm so sorry at people who were offended by these. Oh my God, I hurt your feelings. No, he was like, that was me then. I thought that stuff was okay. I thought that was cool. I thought that was funny. That's who I was at the time, and I'm not that person anymore. Upfront, honest, without being over the top or fake or whatever. Totally down with that. I accept that rationale. That to me is the best thing he could have said. Right? Acknowledging what it was he did and how it is he's grown since then and how he doesn't do that anymore. Where are those tweets now? Those tweets are not here now. Those tweets aren't around now. The end. So obviously evidence, the proof is in the pudding. He's changed. He doesn't do that shit anymore. That's not him anymore. Done. Additionally, right, that propensity though, that tendency to want to like lean in and push the envelope on those things, I think that's part of what makes Guardians of the Galaxy so great. Right? Obviously he's not being super offensive and whatever, but that desire he has to sort of push the edges of what's normal and what's acceptable and what we're used to is why he was able to write movies that were so tonally different than anything else in that vein and in that genre. Right? You may not like them, but I happen to. But anyone who's watched Guardians of the Galaxy movie can see there's a tonal difference in that from any of the other Marvel movies. And that propensity, that desire to like lean into that different, that other, that less normal or acceptable is some of what gives a lot of his comedy and his humor such life. And now one of the things I've heard people say is like, well, obviously they're not jokes because he's not a comedian, he's a director. Okay, false. He is a comedy writer. He is a comedian. That's what he does. That's always been what he does. Now he's a director, yes. Then he wasn't even. He was a comedy writer. So, he's a director now. So obviously he's only a director and therefore could never have done comedy ever. That's dumb. One. Two, saying offensive jokes is not reserved for comedians, although we don't have the corner on that market. Anyone who decides they want to dabble in offensive comedy is allowed to. You can like it, you can dislike it, you can yell at them and give them flack for it, but whatever, they can try. They're allowed to. They're not like, it's not immediately examples of them being a bad person because they're not a comedian making off-color jokes. That's just idiotic. That's just a completely idiotic perspective. So that. Now let's also talk, it's very, very important, right? The thing that people have brought up, but not nearly enough. These tweets are like a decade old. Some of them a decade old. Less than a decade ago, Tropic Thunder came out. You couldn't make that movie right now. That's so not politically correct. 14 years ago, Team America World Police came out. Like the least politically correct movie ever made. And those things have to be taken into account, right? There's a reason that these thousands and thousands of tweets, and yes, that's the whole thing, by the way. Thousands of tweets, right? Provided there are thousands of off-color jokes that he made back in the day. This did not fly under the radar. This is not like, oh my God, he said one thing in a bar once and someone taped it and now it's proof of his pedophilia. No, this was out there for the world to see. The fact that no one cared about it then is proof of the fact that no one cared about it then. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't an issue, right? So obviously, and if you go back, if you can rewind your brain 7 to 10 years, maybe you'll remember a time before all of this ridiculous political correctness, before you got crucified and murdered and had your life torn to shreds because you said something that made somebody offended. That wasn't a thing back then. That was starting to be a thing on college campuses, I can tell you that much. But this was not a widespread thing where, oh my God, you're offensive, so die. People were offending a lot more. People were saying many more offensive things. Now, does that make those offensive things okay? I mean, hell yeah, I wish we were saying those offensive things. I think that the PC culture is what's ruining us today. It makes us way too sensitive, makes us unable to have conversations, because the second someone gets triggered or offended, you just shut the conversation down. And that's messed up. So, yeah, I wish we were more like that then. And did he do anything criminal? No! There's nothing criminal in there. He told bad jokes. You didn't like them. Great. Talk about it. Tell them they were bad, harass them about the fact that they were bad, whatever. I don't care. I don't see any reason that he should lose a job, which, by the way, come on, Disney. These tweets were out there. They existed when you hired him. They're still there. Like, nothing's changed. What has happened in his tenure with you that makes you think that he's a bad person who deserves to be fired over bad jokes he made 10 years ago? Huh? It's just so absurd to me, right? So now to the people nailing him to the wall, right? So, of course, there are some people more on the right side of things that are just snickering and chuckling, like, ha ha ha, we hated you anyway, and we don't agree with this PC culture, but we hated you anyway, and now you're getting nailed to the wall for this stuff. Hey! And then, of course, there's the leftists who are actually doing the crucifying, who, by the way, got played by Trump supporters, totally played, and will never admit that. They just got suckered into that, and that is exactly what happened. Someone was like, boom, these tweets, go. All right, sick the snowflakes on you. That's what they did. Someone just sicked a bunch of snowflakes on this guy, and all the snowflakes were more than willing to be like, oh my God, let's Me Too this guy out of Hollywood. And that's what happened, and they will never admit that because that means admitting they were duped, and they don't want to do that, so they're just going to keep doubling down and pretend they didn't just get completely and totally played by someone who supports Donald Trump, because that will break their little minds. Which, as someone who distinctly does not support Trump, I still think that's hilarious that that's happened, and I still give that guy props for being that clever. Like, that's... Way to go! Keep your hands from getting dirty and just ruin someone who's standing against you. That brilliantly executed. Well done, you. And then again, on the other side of it, like, this is just another one of these witch hunts, right? There are people out there now saying, oh, James Gunn is obviously a pedophile. What happened to due process? What happened to innocent until proven guilty? I can say whatever I want here, and if like, barring, you know, with certain limitations. But I can talk about weird off-color stuff, and unless you have evidence that I've actually done any of it, it's not a crime. It's not a crime. Right? It is not a crime to make bad jokes. It is not a crime to make bad pedophile jokes. And for the people out there who are like, oh, well, it's obviously weird because, like, no one does that. Come to an open mic. Seriously, go to an open mic. Tons and tons of comics coming up, making bad pedophile jokes, making bad rape jokes. And guess what? Right? Maybe the room doesn't respond. Maybe they don't laugh. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they are funny. Sometimes they're good. Other times the room doesn't respond, and that's great. That's a learning process in and of itself. You're not going to do those jokes again if they keep bombing, right? But people come in and they do bad, crummy jokes like that. That doesn't mean I'm going to call the police on them. Hell, it doesn't even mean I'm going to kick them out of the club. I don't necessarily like listening to that material, but I have to. I run an open mic. That's what happens, right? You just deal with that. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't ruin my life or the lives of children because I had to listen to a few people come up and do 3 minutes about, you know, pedophilia jokes that weren't really good and didn't really land. Like, it's not a crime, and it's not as unusual as you think. Seriously, go to an open mic. This is really not like, oh my God, shocking. No normal, sane person jokes about these things. I mean, granted, maybe no comedian is a normal or sane person, but plenty of comics are pushing those limits all the time, sometimes too far, sometimes way too far. And guess what? The world doesn't end. They don't deserve to have their lives ruined, their livelihoods taken away, their names slandered. They don't deserve that just because they made a bad joke. Get over yourselves, people. Seriously. And also, all you snowflakes, you got so played. You got so played. Face it. You played into someone's hands. This was a political stunt to silence a Trump dissenter, and you fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. That's what happened. That's what happened. So deal with it. If I didn't offend you with this video, whatever. Come back. I'll try again. I'll always try again. But if I did, awesome. Awesome. I hope you're, like, spreading all your hate. That's the thing. That's the best thing about doing the meant to offend videos, right? I don't have to worry about, like, oh, am I getting likes? Are there good comments? Like, it's all good, man. If you hated this, then I offended you. Awesome. My favorite comments, too, are the ones where they're like, I'm not offended, but, and they just go on this huge offended diatribe. It's hilarious to me. Anyway, so that's me. That's what I got to say today. If you like this, if you want to support Mindless Entertainment, I got a Patreon. We do so many fun things on my Patreon. I just watched Aladdin with some of my patrons last night. It was super dope. You can also support me by buying my awesome t-shirts. Whee! Like this one. It's the cow. On Teespring, there are links everywhere. So do that, and I'll talk to you guys soon.